How you guys doing? We're talking about Atlanta in this video. Now, look, it's a plate race. Everybody knows how I approach these. I play very aggressive when it comes to playing guys from the back, and I'm typically looking for the lower owned of those drivers, whether they're in bad equipment or you just don't recognize the names, whatever the case may be. That's just how I approach Atlanta. Okay, when we look back at, we'll talk about it. We'll just quickly talk about the Cup Series optimals real fast. So, in the second Atlanta race, we had Chase Elliott, Jones, Haley, Burton, Eric Almirola, Ross Chastain be optimal. What was very interesting about this race was Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain started first and second. Everybody else started outside the top 20. When we look at the let's look at the first Atlanta race, and that race was William Byron, LaJoie, Chastain, Truex, Suarez, and Kurt Busch, with William Byron starting 12th, Ross Chastain starting 7th, Suarez starting 13th, and Kurt Busch starting 9th, LaJoie starting 33rd, Truex Jr. starting 26th. So, yes, we haven't seen a huge, push of guys in the back coming through. I understand that. That's just it. I believe this is very similar to, kind of like rainouts in a way, or because these are the first two races that these cars had ever been on this track, and for both series. When we look at the other optimals, we're not seeing necessarily all the guys from the back. Now, we can look at this one of two ways, and I still believe that looking at Atlanta by itself versus comparing it with Talladega and Daytona is the way to go. I still want just more. I'd like to get through this year and then kind of re-look at the data to see if there's if trends really are just going to be, being way more aggressive with guys in the top 20 or not. But where I'm at, I look at this as teams coming to this track for the first year last year, not really aggressively pushing it in terms of wrecking the entire field up front. And, my type of approach just isn't going to cash, or didn't really cash last year. I don't think I made really any money at any Atlanta race. And I'm okay with that, if that's okay. I believe in the process that we're going to have a wreck at some point at this track. And I feel like it's the same risk that I typically carry at any other race, to where if we don't get a wreck fest like Daytona and the Truck Series to open the Europe, got rained out, didn't cash at all. Not a single one of my lines was even close to the bubble because nobody wrecked. So, look, for me, I want to be playing just guys in the back and hoping for a wreck. Now, I probably am going to play a bit softer just in case Atlanta does end up not becoming like that, but softer in a sense of normally I do 20 lines on these plate races. I'll probably just do 10 for each series, and then just really, really heavily be overweight on the no-names and the people that drivers don't want to play. Another reason why I feel like I want to do that even more now is I feel like I'll have leverage on the field. The reason why I'm saying that is because I really do think that people are going to try and chase the optimal, which we see all the time at regular plate races. They're like, oh, we need exactly one guy in the top 15, then one guy in the top 20, maybe the guy starting 16th. You don't necessarily want to go all the way back to where, if people look back at these optimal lineups, they might feel more encouraged and more I feel like they're going to try and chase the previous optimals that we've seen, and I just don't want to do that. And I feel like, when we're playing, at least with me, when I'm playing lineups that are specifically guys 30th and back, 26 on back, versus, I'm going to say at least 60% of the field with one or two guys starting inside the top 20, all you just need is either those two guys to perform bad, or my guys to get to the middle of the pack, and we're scoring very similar, if not my lineups are scoring slightly higher. And I feel like people aren't going to approach Atlanta that way. I really do think people are just going to look at the spreadsheets and look at the previous races and the optimals and be like, well, we can't necessarily really stack from the back. When I would argue that we didn't get incredibly crazy in the 500 until the very end. Like with me going back to the 500 this year, I wasn't making any money until lap 197. And I still wasn't making any money till lap 208 or something. I had to get through two green, white checkers, or at least that first yellow, whatever the case happened, the big wreck, and then all my guys who were lapped down, slowly getting through the field and everything. That's when I made money, So, yeah, so, when I take this risk, it's I need people to wreck. But I think there's either going to be fewer people approaching Atlanta that way. When we look at Atlanta and how fast like not like how fast you go, but how fast you click off laps. You can very easily, if you lose the pack, you can go a lap down very quickly. You can go multiple laps down. When we look at the Gen 6 specifically, multiple drivers have said it. Really, this year, like, you cannot pass in this car at all. You can't. Look at the Daytona 500. We basically eliminated the middle lane. The way that these cars work, not only is that lane not viable, but you really can't even make it work. Like, if you fall in the middle, people are just going to abandon you. These guys are going to be side by side, 2 by 2. I don't think we're going to see like 3 wide racing until it gets to the end of the stages and the races, whatever the case may be. Now, why is that important? Why is that something we need to think about? Well, if track position is everything, we are going to see guys aggressively defending the lead and their track position up front. And I mentioned it last year, and clearly, like, look, everybody knows how I approach these, but I mentioned it last year of how close we were to absolutely killing the field multiple times last year in these races, okay? A majority of our wrecks have happened at a turn 4, and that shoves the field to the outside wall coming to the tri-oval. So it gives people tons of room to get through. But if we run into a situation to where we get somebody to spin either midway, down the max straightaway, or entering 3, that's a track blocker. You aren't going to be able to avoid that with this car. Even if you do and throw it to the apron, you might end up damaging a control arm or your what is it called, man? I just went blank. The diffuser. Throwing it to the apron in turns 3 and 4. So, look, I'm going to keep playing guys from the back. That's just where I am. I feel very comfortable doing that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's just kind of where I want to be until Atlanta really does just either take all my money and by the end of the year, like, it just completely shows me that isn't viable. But I want to just lean into a situation where we get a track blocker and, we take out, 10, 15 guys and stuff. And, and like, look at last year with LaJoie when he put himself in the wall, it's because he overcorrected. If LaJoie holds it left at the end of the race last year, he's wrecking back into the field. Like, we could have wrecked way more people last year, both races, but we didn't. Across the board, Truck, Xfinity, Cup Series, that's just where I feel. That's just kind of where I'm at. 2 things of note, though, related to the Truck and Xfinity Series. And they designed Atlanta with a lot of wear planned into it. So if you take it, like, look at the surface, okay? I don't know if the broadcast is going to talk about it or whatnot, but if you look at the surface is already aged quite a lot. That was in its design. And from people that I've talked to at Atlanta, they are on the fence of what this racetrack is going to turn into. For the Cup Series, we don't see much changing in terms of, just because those cars are so freaking wide and they take so much air, we don't really see a lot of changes. But for Xfinity specifically, and we don't know if we're going to start seeing it this year or next year, but Xfinity could very easily start turning into, like, truly an old Daytona, like Daytona 07, 06, in a sense of you get guys single file. And it's not that it races like an intermediate track, but just due to how it's aging and handling being way more important, you might get into a situation of, you have like a 7-car breakaway, and then a group of like another 5 cars, another group of 7, another group of 3, another group of 7, and you kind of break into like mini packs at Atlanta in the Xfinity Series. I don't know if we're going to run into that here. Oh, and I mean, so that's the first way that we're kind of leading to Atlanta kind of aging, specifically for probably Xfinity, because the trucks, you don't have enough horsepower to really worry about it. Next gen, you're just kind of stuck together. But Xfinity's the variable, or it really does turn into a 1.5. You just don't lift, but everybody's kind of running spread out. Those are the 2 directions that we kind of see Atlanta going for. Probably the Xfinity Series. I doubt we're going to see that this year. We might see it with how aggressive that they're trying to age this track. With the process when they paved it, we might see that in the second Atlanta race. I'm not entirely sure, but I wanted to keep that out there, or throw that out there, because that is something that I've been talked to about, and I'm curious on what direction it's going to go. But yeah, for Xfinity, Truck, Cup Series this weekend, I'm just going to play guys for the back, man. Play low-owned guys in the back. Play ownership. Hope for wrecks. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, I'm not gonna quit doing that. I'm not. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna spend all my day trying to figure out who's going to lead laps or who's going to survive up front or who's going to start 7th and finish 2nd at the end of the day. Like, just, oh my God, screw that. I'm just gonna play guys from the back. That's just how it is, man. So I will see you guys in live shows. We'll have some fun Saturday morning talking about these 2 races on Saturday, and then I'll be live on Sunday as well. But look, that's where I'm at. We're here to have fun. We're here to watch wrecks, and that's really the take I'm doing. So I'll see you guys then.